Again, order is random. And the same thing, this team also has 30 minutes for presentation, 15 minutes for questions. So take it away.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. I'm Alan Stelmacher, representing the greater Sellen Construction ZGF Architects team, and we're excited to be here, and it's a great opportunity, I think, to move the state forward. Our team is excited. You don't get to work on your state capitol campus very many times in your lifetime, maybe once if you're lucky. So we're excited to be here. We think we have a lot to bring in terms of our teamwork ethic and the way we can bring value to this project, which is an important component to us, and that teamwork extends into, we think, a new way of thinking about doing business on campus, but leaving a legacy that we can all be proud of in the end, both as architects, builders, and as citizens. So really for us, starting out in concept, again, of course, here's our site, the site context, and on the heels of the recent adoption of the master plan for the campus, the landscape master plan, to sort of re-imbibing of the Olmsted Brothers landscape has been a big component we'll talk about in a moment, but it really represents the kind of completion of the vision. We're really excited that that's a tentative project moving forward. But I think more importantly for us, that was anchored to this thought of this made in Washington, of Washington. We're really inspired by the original Wilder and White grouping. The selection of this campus really, essentially with the ledge, is really, it's another mountain in a sense. This is embracing nature at once. It really represents what the state is about. And then internally within the GA buildings, the old Gene Corey Beal 1959 mural. It's a good year. It's the year of my birth, so a lot of good things happened that year. But it really represents the cornucopia or the mosaic of the strength of what Washington is, resources, people, our strength and endeavors moving forward. So those are two powerful and instructive components for us to help us shape the vision you're going to see today. The site context is interesting. As you well know, it's a really urban gateway and a campus gateway site that really understands, in some respects, the vision of the campus over time. And of course, the original arrival for campus was envisioned by steamship or railroad in downtown. One would proceed up Capitol Way and on axis to the ledge on this side. Of course, with the introduction of Mr. Eisenhower in the 1950s and 60s, we had the interstate highway system where we have now evolving methodology of understanding the campus. So once we're understanding how do we honor old parts of campus, how do we think about the new parts of campus as well that are big drivers in that context. And as we were moving forward with this process, we're also thinking about how can this building represent a good example of where we can help take planning for this capital complex in the future of this campus and really evolve by thinking about future sites and how they address the greater capital campus, the Olmsted law, and opportunities to really expand and connect with the city and the campus at the same time. And that's really putting in the context of a larger growth for the next 50 or 100 years beyond that, but you need to think at a lot of different scales as you evolve and think about how you support a vision for your state capital campus. Within the campus, there are a lot of embedded jewels, which are really important things to understand within the larger landscape. A lot of those are a memorial or honorarium or ornament that are really powerful components, and we thought, and you'll see in a moment, that our goal was really to embed one of those pedestrian scale elements within the greater lawn, within our building, beginning to have a dialogue inside out, outside in between key components of the campus. And as well, of course, coming back to the anchor of views, connections to the landscape, those are things that flow through the design and are part of the public experience of this building as well as the workplace experience as well. So that's something that's thought of and designed to be shared by all within this concept as well. And again, it's a tremendous opportunity to really take advantage of a spectacular location within the state. And then we're trying to honor what is old with what is new, and that was really understanding the bones of the classical organization of the campus, making sure that our modern framework fit within the original founders' ideas about how we began to organize our building. You'll see that in a moment in terms of the simple bicameral organization that in the two houses that actually began to understand how Capitol campus is organized. We have two wings that get tied together, but are really a simple fundamental for the development of our building based on the old architecture, but looking forward to the future as well. At the end of the day, our building is not meant to be overcome the grace and qualities of the ledge and the Capitol. It's really meant to be appropriate, purposeful, modest in that respect, and really represent a subservient building to that overall goal, but really a very powerful servant to make sure the work gets done in a very appropriate way within the Capitol and the best way it can be done. And to that end, we really are minding the limits of the height, the 59 feet, which are big drivers in that context. So our big strategy really for this building was thinking about two important things for us. How do we connect the building to its larger urban neighborhood, the city of Olympia, and the streetscape along Union, as well as how do we begin to make a stronger connection to the Olmsted lawn. And you'll see this word porch. We thought, how do we make a new model for a building that really says, how do we invite the public in, connect it to the landscape, bring that landscape in the building, and really honor that. And that starts really at the, what we call the front porch of the building, opening up and having more transparent, neighborly kind of feel for the building along 11th. This is the Capitol and 11th, looking towards the west, as well as creating a more powerful urban circumstance for the city of Olympia in terms of the urban streetscape of the building and the way it scales and fits within that context. And to us, that was the excitement of being a good steward of your state capitol campus and moving a project forward that would be appropriate and mindful of all those objectives. So, that's a little bit about the big outside and the big picture. Success starts with good bones for a building, and for us, building the building on good bones is really important, and that needed to be efficient, flexible over time, highly effective as a workplace, and really optimize the environment to put people in. We'll hear some things tonight about the overall evolution of this plan, but essentially what you see facing what we call in the Olmsted porch or the Olmsted lawn is a C-shaped building. It is very rectilinear. There are no curves in here. It's very efficient for planning, straightforward, with narrow wing widths to ensure daylight and connection to views on all angles. And then within the core of that building hold a number of distributed and shared interaction, break, and office spaces that make up a kind of mixing volume for the building as a strategy. Those are all connected in ways that allow us to have this tenanted in many ways in the future, so it has ultimate flexibility within the context of how we develop planning in the building over time as it needs to over the next 50 to 100 years. Another big component that was important for us is understanding not only horizontally how the building works, but how can we integrate the building vertically as well. Connections down to Union, the city of Olympia on the lower level where there's the public entry, the Olmsted lawn or front porch here, which is at the lawn level. And then as we move up the building, there are shared distributed functions that can be used by those within the Capitol campus. There are also public amenity and spaces that can be moved as one moves up and down in the building. So we're really looking to break the model, lift people up, and make it more transparent and engage government as part of the overall campus as it goes forward. A little bit of a zoom in on the site, coming to think about our position. And again, our goal was really to think about the Olmsted principles. The Olmsted brothers built the campus on a strategy of service before beauty. Everything has function. You'll see in our plan, we've also thought about the large sets of trees that exist on campus. Those are going to help shade the front of our building in the summer. They're powerful visually, but more importantly, we've been thinking about how do we integrate the layered planting that was part of the Olmsted plan within the context of our building, so that we can begin to develop those sub-layers of landscape as the master plan for the campus is fulfilled and moves forward as a strategy. I mentioned a little bit about some of the jewels on campus. You see here that strong connection of the building to the landscape, the fundamental bicameral bars that we developed with a small infill piece along the Union Street frontage. What's really at the center of the campus is that primary porch and entry. We'll talk about that setback. You can see all the shared and collaborative areas in this sort of indoor-outdoor plaza in the middle. And the real goal here for us has been to create a jewel within the building that is part of the inside-outside experience that connects the lawn and that overall landscape experience to the Capitol grounds in that context. And that's been the big driver: transparency, sense of openness, and connection within that context. Within that amenity space are shared core elements for vertical transportation, conference and break areas as well, and clear circulation paths that really look to create an inside-out, outside-in architecture that really honors all those pieces. Strong streetscape around that, and we'll talk about that, but probably more importantly, this understanding of creating a porch that is really the larger kind of idea behind the building, almost for us the Olmsted porch, that really celebrates the lawn, invites people in. And for us, that takes shape and manifests itself in the architecture of the building as well. The two larger rings, which are somewhat formal on the flanking sides, you can see here the large porch structure in this context. I mentioned a little bit about the big trees that exist. This one is retained on site here. We've established landscaping that works around that, a small drop-off. And then a larger setback here of 25 feet. We've essentially put on this porch front space to sit out in that lawn, meet your neighbors, really come together and have that sit in the sunshine under cover as part of the overall strategy. We've proposed in terms of artwork, you can see here is a very light ceramic fruit pattern on glazing for the interaction and conference spaces beyond. It's actually a replication of the Jean Corey mural, which is replicated, which is replaced with inside the building, is really kind of again, a big marker of that big cornucopia or the mosaic of the state of Washington. Pretty straightforward porch though, very simple architecture, supporting the overall goals of the campus. Again, landscape, you can see the connections inside out. Here's the front of the building, that larger setback with seating areas, development of plaza and landscape pieces that are important parts of connecting the workspace, as well as connecting citizens to people with what's going on inside the building. Again, very transparent idea, an open porch. And again, bringing across subcomponents of the Olmsted understory on a great spring day like today when the quince is out or the dogwoods are starting to come out, is having that color and fragrance as part of that overall experience. It really brings the lawn into the building as well. A couple of quick model shots of that as well. You get a sense of that big porch is a big driver and really a big welcoming element. It's much different than a big flat facade that says, maybe come in here. This says, come, this is part of your government. Come be a part of that. That's the big welcome for us, this sort of interactive area. Great views back to the Capitol and really an interactive environment in that larger setback, which is a really important component for our team to think about. As we turn down, this is Capitol Way. Very simple framework for the building. Again, we've tried to keep a very clean and glassy, transparent facade along Capitol. There's a big, larger anchors at the top along the Olmsted lawn, as well as down at the lower parts of the building. This is a wood texture on the building. This is poured in place concrete. The frame or material aspects of the building here are a lightweight cast stone product that has the attributes of stone, but more modern attributes in terms of thermal performance and flexibility. That's a big part of that. And then you'll see, we'll talk about in a moment, there are stainless steel sunscreen elements here that optimize the lighting and glare experience within the building, as well as optimizing ventilation within the building. I'll mention briefly metal screen wall elements on top for the penthouse pieces of the building, but a very simple armature that honors the original groupings, thinks about how the building can have a very simple and straightforward appearance. Along Capitol, we've made some concessions. We've set the building back 5 feet, and that was good for us because that 5-foot setback allows us to really keep the existing street trees that are along that side, give them time to grow. Those are an important part of our lower story sun control as well as a great pedestrian experience. Again, you can see the planting strips on both sides, a little bit of widening as the plazas as we move down on the east and west sides of the building. Again, just a shot from Capitol looking down towards the city, down Capitol Way. Again, those trees, the simple formal framework, that cast stone, stainless steel screen elements on those 3 floors, glassy components, cast in place concrete, and then that streetscape landscape. Very simple tenants or bones of the building, as is most of the other original buildings on campus. The west facade, again, is very similar, same thermal issues we face, treated in much the same way. And again, you can see the porch overhang in the front, that larger setback in porch area on the south face of the building. Similar streetscape developments, as well as some potential to grow landscape materials up on this concrete plinth as well. And this looks forward to kind of the next evolution, I would say, of the GA site as we move forward. And then our second entry site, this is the Union Street front door. We have 2 front doors for this building. The primary piece here, you see the Union Street entry, which is a floor below the Olmsted entry. You'll see that there's a state seal here. This is a legacy state seal, a heritage state seal that's removed from the GA building and replaced on the civic side of the building, introducing that entrance. In this context, there are massing alterations. This is a public terrace and building terrace on the upper parts of the building. We've broken the building up to give it more character on the city side, a different entire environment. We do have service access here, but we have, more importantly, glazing and entrance points around the different flanks of the building, and a lot of scale and character to the building as well. The building is rectilinear. It allows us to develop this second landscape on the city side as well. In that context, it's really about stormwater. It's on the downhill side. There's a smaller entrance plaza as well that accommodates this secondary entry to the building. And the goal here is really to celebrate the stormwater components as well as bring appropriate plannings that really liven that streetscape and improve the overall quality of the Union. And as we move back up, there's this upper level terrace in the building as well. This is a incredible view terrace. It's sort of an Olympic, we call it the Olympic view terrace. It has a chance to work off of conference spaces within the building as well as shared space in the building. So it's really an amenity zone that can be used by the public as well as staff within the building. And again, just a couple of model shots of that, and the scale and character at the back of the building. I would point out that we have 39 different sunshade elements, each representing one of the different 39 counties within the state of Washington. And then really on the tail end, you gotta have fun when you do this stuff. On the tail end of that, you can see a quick view of this. Again, there's that state seal, a little bit of texture, seating areas as well as screenscape, and then a chance to help celebrate markers. This is another bit of fun. This is the sort of unsprung artesian spring, really, is a gateway art piece to thinking about how do we celebrate the city as well as enters to the state capitol as well. So that thinking really pushed us into the inside of the building as well. And I think what's important to point out is that the themes of the Gene Corey Beal mosaic mural really inspired us to think about a wayfinding strategy that organized different floors within the building with a different theme based upon what you found in that mural. We would pull color and wayfinding to integrate that within the overall story. I'll just walk you through 1, 2, 3, 4 quick stories. This is the Olmsted Connection Union, typical component as well as the terrace piece. But again, these are some quick snapshots of the interior of the building, what we call the commons. Again, here's that front porch entry. There's a simple entry component here, a large court space, which you see in the rendering. You see the removed mural and replaced here within the sort of Olmsted Court, as we call it, on this flank of the building. Big vertical stair connector in that location. There's a big overlook in this location. These are elevators for the building. This looks over the Union Court, which is below this, and then a sprinkling of clustering of office and meeting space, as well as what we call the forum that drops down the lower level again. Really trying to create a mixed and interactive environment that is open and shared with the shared facilities for all. This drops down one level to this Union, what we call the Union Court level. This is on the approach coming off of Union Street. You see this sort of zone here, this sort of what we call the forum, a grandstand that leads you up to that, and connects you to that Olmsted Court. In plan, we've located some of the larger conference spaces down here along with pre-function spaces in the darkness a little bit. Much of the time they are used in the darkness, and then adjacent support spaces around that, service and other components. But again, really driving daylight down in that space all the way through that atrium. You see in a moment, again, open elevators within the core, and again, that sort of internal composition to the buildings we think about moving up. Second and third levels are very similar, and again, we've looked at themes that would drive the makeup of some of the break areas and the theme of each floor. So wayfinding, this is sort of arts and culture, but again, conference interaction space, open space often within the greater open atrium components, shared facilities and toilets and break spaces as well as meeting spaces. So really a mix of pieces that allow this building to really live and breathe all the activities within it while allowing simple breakup of the functional space or the tenants within the building as well. Again, a mix of really simple materials, some wood accent, use of concrete, very honest and straightforward materials that for the citizens of the state would be very appropriate, but used in a very dignified kind of manner. So a really efficient kind of strategy about how we think about using materials in our modern buildings. And then I'll say the fourth level, this is the nature environment was a big theme here. And again, our notion is that we get some additional light into the building through this upper conference room. It's glazed on both sides through the terrace. This is the Results Washington conference room. It's another shared conference and lounge space. But again, at the upper parts of the building, trying to bring light through in the building, trying to bring people up in the building, trying to really create a more vertical accented building that really draws people into its inner workings and creates a more visionary way of thinking about our building in the future. For us and this team, this is all about being better and being much better. This building operates at a KBTU per square foot of about 30.1. It puts us in the 99th percentile of all buildings here within the Northwest. Saves the state about $87,000 a year to operate. It takes about 250 cars off the street every year in terms of its CO2 use within that. That's at this 30.1. We think there's more room to go if you pick this team if we push farther within that. But being effective on energy use is a big part for us. The overall strategy for the building, passive systems. We'll talk about shading and daylight. We have a big atrium within the building that I didn't mention directly, but really that animates that central atrium. So there's passive things that are really important, daylighting, shading, and ventilation. There's also active systems that provide human comfort for occupants. We want to make the effectiveness of the occupants and users of the building as high as it can be. That's good for the state, that's good for the workers, that's good for everybody. That's what an optimal environment can do for people in terms of how we approach the building. Daylight has been a big part of that. We've optimized our wing widths to 68 feet. We feel, given the mix of space types, that this is really the right area to be in terms of optimizing daylight. Daylight represents about 50% of the overall energy use, and we have a chance to really reduce that substantially by the use of natural lighting for the building. And again, these things are important because when people feel good and have connections to nature and they have access to daylight, they're more productive, they're happier, they work better, they don't go homesick. You have a more productive environment, a more engaged environment for individuals. They want to come to work, and that's the kind of building we want to create. It really helps motivate workers, and we see this in the private workforce, and we really know we need to bring this across and help modernize the way we do work within the state as well. So it's a really important aspect of thinking about how does it going to affect the overall bottom line for the state within this context. We're taking advantage of free cooling. 58% of the year we have the ability to draw in fresh air that's the right temperature for us within the building. We're really taking advantage of that in terms of our ventilation systems for the building and some simple thermal components we've done within the building. The orientation, I mentioned the skylight. By simply tipping the skylight back towards the north on the top of the building, we're able to reduce the solar loads in that by 12% and provide a rich daylit environment down through that atrium core. And as we talked about on the east and west, we have stainless steel screens that by orientation allow us to reduce the thermal loads by 66% on those spaces. These allow us to reduce the overall thermal loads, prevent glare within the workspace, yet allow connection to view within these larger, more modern sort of sunscreen elements around the building that fit within the classical frame of the building. And those also allow us to operate natural ventilation windows within the building that optimize views out to the north, that allow cooling winds in our summer months, which do come from the north, that come into the building as well. These are operated by occupants within the building on the sensor system, so they know when it's appropriate to operate those, but it really allows us to manage the east and west facades of the building, which are really thermally intensive, and if we don't manage them well, will not be that good. We think this is a great way to do that as a profile strategy for the building. About 13% of our energy is free. It comes out of the ground through a heat loop system. We use that both for heating in the winter and cooling in the summer. It's augmented by boiler and chiller systems when it needs to go to peak levels. It's not oversized. It's appropriately sized to be the most efficient kind of component we can have. And then overall water use is reduced in the building, and water is a big issue, of course, for all of us in the state of Washington, and it's especially important here in Olympia because there's a lot better things to do with your water than we see in buildings, and we want to make sure that we can bring back those industries as well and celebrate what they do as well. So that's a big part of that. So I think as our team went forward and starting this project, one of the big things we want to do is think about how can this building be a celebration of the people and the industry of the state. And we started what we thought was made in Washington, became sourced in Washington. It was really about celebrating people within the state. 75 cents of every dollar that goes into this building is products and energies of citizens in the state of Washington. We're working hard to make sure we're bringing as much of our ingenuity and innovation from our citizens and product developers into this process as well. And that's been an exciting kind of endeavor for us. And I've gone through a little bit of the sustainability pieces, but I would say that this piece down here, innovation, is something that this particular team really enjoys right now. We're working on really thinking about new ways to produce new concrete products that might have stronger environmental declarations. It can be really part of a new go-forward plan, inventing new products and pieces that really push the state and our industry about where we go with products and how we approach buildings within the state and keep the ball rolling forward in that respect. We're at a league goal right now, 75 points. For those who like to check the boxes, I can help you fill in the little dots if you brought your league chart with you today. But we know we can get even a little bit further if we have monies that come forward as we buy out parts of the construction. We're going to be happy to move those dollars forward for our PB pieces that can move us into the league platinum range easily if we get those components. So we're really devising a strategy that allows the construction process to really improve the quality of the project as we go through and find value and dollars within that. So that's our project. This is 3 minutes, and 15 seconds of a quick view of that. Here's our site right here within the context of the Wilder and White grouping, the strong fundamental axes of that. But again, it has such a prominent location within the Olmsted context, the front door of that piece as well. And our goal has really been to begin to align it as a new component within the context of the city and the region because of the great regional views, but also have it play a role within the historic construct and organization of campus is that important piece. Again, the bicameral, symmetrical development of the building, thinking about how it looks now and in the future as well in terms of how we develop the site. And probably more importantly, thinking about how do we honor the past, but think about a forward-looking building in terms of the way it fits within the campus. This again is that Union Street view, that Heritage Seal of Washington, that second entry, really celebrating the city connections. We work hard to think about how does the building integrate itself with the city, as well as within the capital context and being a good neighbor. And really having two front doors. You see the upper terrace, which is that public terrace with the view out towards the landscape. There are ceremonial and appropriate encumbrances to the building that honor it as a state building, potentials for signage as well. But we think more importantly the social aspects of how the building comes together in terms of its social function, and bringing people together to have meetings on that front porch or events, or 4th of July parties before the big fireworks are an important piece of thinking about how the building works within the landscape of the Capitol campus as well as within the city. And then I think as important to all of our work is how we develop the city. Streetscape components of the building, transparent glazing on those street facades, enabling all of the streets really to connect with the actions within the building. And again, a quick build-up of the program pieces. You see the commons pieces, the conference in purple there, the red vertical cores, the yellow break spaces. That's really the heart of the building. The big program that wraps around that is simple, functional, and elegant kind of solution that's very much it's a sophisticated solution that looks at the organization of the building. And then the multi-level development and transparency within the building. Because for us, creating a building that represented transparency for state government was really an important strategy in terms of stripping away walls and separation of the public and what goes on within the building. And really trying to connect levels vertically as well as horizontally is the big driver. Again, the heritage art piece in that Olmsted Commons, the daylight, you see the skylight above with reclaimed timber supporting that. And then some wood features for some of the conference interaction spaces within the overall makeup of that larger interior atrium space as well. Break spaces that are integrated in that, so we're mixing work and play, and we're creating a larger social environment for the activities of the building to be ongoing. And again, people have a greater sense of connection when they can see somebody move vertically between floors. And then, of course, the Olympic View Terrace for us, pretty opportunities to move the public out into the building and have them celebrate and embrace the building are important, as well as ultimately how we can effectively lay out the tenant space and create high-performance work environments for agencies that are housed within this building and connect them to the sort of rich tapestry of the campus in a meaningful way that's important for us. So it's been our honor to participate in this great endeavor. We hope it bears great fruit for the state. We are poised, we are ready, and we are enthused about the opportunity. And with that, I will open it up to questions, and thanks for coming out on this somewhat nice evening. Rick, I think we've got all the boxes checked. If you guys are ready, so.
No questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
So we'll have another transitional moment. Next team gets in here. So if I have time to run out and use the restroom if you need to.
No, I'm. Yeah, all you would see is a whole yeah, it's very interesting. Something wild.
Relative to